What if Deadpool was a Mandalorian Jedi Bounty Hunter? Let's explore the depths of this scenario in the video. Sergeant Slick walks through the dark halls of a Coruscant prison he's called home. But today, his guards surprise him by informing him that someone wants to visit him. As he reaches the private chamber, he's surprised to see Captain Tarkin seated at a table.
Good afternoon, Sergeant. I hope you are doing well. Yeah, as well as can be expected from a convict here. Yes, I do apologize for the conditions of this facility. Unfortunately, the war has required the Republic to shift its resources to more important areas. But you will be pleased to know that you may not have to linger here for long, depending on our decision. Is that right? Well, what do you want to talk about? Well, first I would like to ask you a few questions regarding your actions on Christophsis. It was said you turned on your fellow clones and the Republic. No, that's not right. I turned against the Jedi, not my brothers. I failed to see the difference. Yeah, I figured someone like you wouldn't understand. The bond we clones share is something that no one can understand, or our burden. Then by all means, please elaborate. We were created by the Jedi to serve in this war, but we're not equals in their eyes. We're little more than droids to them. It's their foolishness that gets them killed, their self-righteous ideas and inflexibility. And I'm tired of it.
Tarkin listens in a long silence, but then smiles.
I think you're exactly what we're looking for. We? The Chancellor has reason to suspect the Jedi's loyalty and wishes to take precautions. To that end, he's looking for an experienced soldier who shares his ideals, and you, sir, fit the requirements.
As night falls, Tarkin walks out with Slick and travels to Tanis Base. He heads to a storage facility containing a clone. Beside him is a set of black and red Mandalorian armor. This trooper represents the next generation of cloning technology, a new template to create better soldiers. Your job is to train him in combat and in understanding the Jedi.
Understood, sir.
Soon after, the clone is released and dubbed Deadpool. As the two begin training, Slick wastes no time in teaching his student how to fight. Thankfully, Deadpool is a natural in combat, mastering blades, explosives, and vibroswords. Slick also teaches the assassin about the Jedi. He tells him how they are the ones keeping their people enslaved in this war. To fight them, the clone sergeant teaches him how to use the Jedi's beliefs against them.
So you're telling me this weird religion takes children from their families when they're babies and teaches them they can't have connections with anyone, and in exchange, they can access mystical powers. Don't forget about having an army of slaves. Great. So when do we start killing these space cultists?
Palpatine finds their first target, Luminara Undalai. The Jedi Master is fighting on Felucia with her battalion, allowing Deadpool and Slick to set up a trap by setting up a falsified report of trouble in a nearby Felucian village by some smugglers, using it as a base to send supplies to the CIS. While the rest of her unit moves on ahead, Luminara takes a small squad to investigate. However, the village they find is abandoned. As the soldiers investigate, Deadpool prepares his weapons. By the time the Jedi Master reaches the center of the village, she hears blaster fire all around her, followed by the sound of stun rounds.
What's going on? Report.
Just getting what's coming to you, Jedi scum.
Slick appears from one of the huts, firing his blaster. Luminara spins and deflects these shots, sending them back towards the clone who hides behind cover. But with the Jedi distracted, Deadpool activates the explosives he's buried and watches her getting thrown back. As the two approach, the Jedi surges to her feet and sweeps her lightsaber at the pair. Deadpool advances, firing his blaster, but the Jedi Master blocks and deflects a bolt at Deadpool and knocks the blaster from his hand. He draws his vibro swords, sweeping both swords across her legs. Luminara leaps up and kicks him before flipping to her feet. Deadpool crosses his swords to block her next attack. The weapons hold and prevent her from breaking through. Seeing that she can't match him in strength, Luminara pulls her lightsaber back and uses the Force to shove him back. Deadpool stumbles towards the jungle, but the Jedi is hot on his heels. As he approaches the tree line, He feels Luminara right on top of him and tries to bring his vibrosword to block her attack. He's too slow, and the lightsaber slashes him from shoulder to waist. As he drops to the ground, Luminara presses her lightsaber against him.
Die, space pedophile.
He clicks his button on his comms and rolls aside. An explosion along the trees sends the canopy falling on top of her. Despite his grievous injury, Deadpool has no trouble moving and dives out of the way. By the time Slick arrives, Deadpool is already blasting at her corpse. The clone sees everything and inspects his student. To his surprise, the wound is already closing, and there's little sign of blood.
That attack should have killed you. How?
They have little time to talk, as the other clones are starting to wake up. Instead, they grab Luminara's lightsaber and run off to report to Palpatine. In his report, Slick asks how Deadpool can survive such injuries. The only response he gets from Tarkin is that due to a side effect in the cloning process, he possesses genetically desirable defects. Of course, he didn't tell the clone everything. While this is indeed a new clone, this one is unique and part of Palpatine's newest project. To make the ultimate enforcer, he scoured the galaxy for the ideal clone template, settling on a Force-sensitive Mandalorian. Aside from cloning him, the Chancellor used this clone as a test for Project Necromancer to try and replicate an individual's M count and give them Force powers. However, the process isn't perfect, and these Force abilities only appear as enhanced healing and a strange connection in the Force that alters Deadpool's mind. But the results speak for themselves, and Tarkin immediately greenlights more missions. The two target those Jedi who the Chancellor deems a threat, or who might threaten his plans. Throughout the war, they kill over a dozen Jedi. However, the Order has no idea who these killers are beyond being experienced bounty hunters. But in the waning months, the pair receive their most daring assignment, to execute the fugitive Ahsoka Tano for bombing the Jedi Temple. As Ahsoka runs through the dim light of the lower districts, she hears the steady footfalls behind her, advancing purposefully after her. She stumbles in a puddle and barely catches herself as she turns a corner, but finds a clone pointing a blaster at her. Behind her, the Mandalorian warrior absently twirls his vibroblades.
All right. You got me. I'll surrender peacefully.
Nice of you to make this easy for us. Unfortunately, we aren't here to take you prisoner.
Ahsoka's eyes widen as she realizes what the clone means. Before Slick can fire, Ahsoka kicks his arm in the air, causing the shot to go wide. She clenches her fist and gets into a fighting stance.
Then why are you here?
Well, it's not for tea and cookies, I'll tell you that.
Deadpool whirls from behind and aims his vibroswords at her neck, but then a blaster of blue lightning streaks across the room, striking Deadpool's vibroblades and sending him reeling back. When he blinks, Anakin is standing in front of him, his lightsaber held ready. Beside him, Ventress wears a smug grin.
Didn't I hire you on Christophsis before?
You did. Now I believe you owe me my freedom.
I don't pay failures.
Now lay down your weapon, Slick, and consider yourself lucky I'll let you live.
Whoa! Slow your roll, child killer. The kid's coming with us.
Without warning, Slick slides away as Deadpool activates his jetpack and sends a burst of flames. Anakin redirects the flames. Ventress snarls and leaps up against him, but Slick fires his blaster and pushes her on the defense. Ventress rushes towards him, leaving the clone no chance but to drop a grenade and run. The assassin casually kicks it aside, sending the clone flying. However, Anakin isn't having as much luck as Deadpool avoids his slashes by flying high. Seeing his partner in trouble, he throws a grenade in Ventress's direction, sending her stumbling back and swooping down. However, Anakin takes this opportunity to slice at Deadpool's jetpack and sends him crashing into a wall where he's consumed in an explosion. Slick screams and rams Anakin, sending him stumbling back as he tries to punch him.
You made us expendable, Skywalker. Now we're taking control.
Maybe. But there's only one of you.
Don't be so quick to count me out yet.
From the fire, Deadpool's head emerges, and nothing else.
How is he still alive?
I feel like I'm 5 pounds lighter.
Slick, noticing that Ventress is starting to gain the upper hand, quickly flips back, firing a few shots at her feet to create distance.
Slick, we gotta bounce. Grab my head.
Slick hesitates, but he knows Deadpool is right. He tosses a flash grenade on the ground and tucks Deadpool under his arm before running away. This would be fortunate, as Ahsoka was found innocent of the bombing. However, Tarkin and Palpatine are less than pleased at the pair's failure to assassinate her, especially since it also means the Jedi are now onto them and know who was after them. Palpatine barely manages to control Anakin and spin the story in his favor by claiming that Slick must have escaped prison due to the laxity of the Coruscant Guard. Tarkin keeps the pair grounded to keep them from drawing any more attention, but one mission soon becomes too great for them to ignore.
Seems like the Admiral has finally forgiven us. That, or he misses our company.
Be serious. We don't want to mess this up a second time.
How are we the ones who messed up? They had us hunting the wrong Jedi all this time.
Does it matter whether it was Skywalker's brat or someone else? All the Jedi are guilty of what they did to our clones.
As they enter the briefing room, Tarkin is waiting for them with his arms crossed. He holds up a datapad.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I assume you are both eager to get back into the field. Earlier today, there was a troubling development. The Chancellor was almost assassinated. The rogue clone has escaped, and we expect you to track him down. Whoa. Hold on. You said a clone did this? All due respect, sir. That's not part of our agreement. Our deal is that we hunt Jedi. I won't fight against clones. Our agreement, Sergeant, is that you hunt down enemies of the Republic. As it happens, most of these enemies were Jedi. However, I do not expect you to hesitate to take down all enemies of the Republic.
Slick had managed to track him down, using different clone reports that claims they found him, leading them to a warehouse deep in the bowels of Coruscant. The warehouse is dimly lit, filled with crates and old machinery. Slick and Deadpool move through the shadows, their footsteps barely audible. Ahead, Fives is disheveled and desperate. He moves cautiously, but remains unaware he's being hunted. Slick and Deadpool move cautiously as well, through the darkness. Their weapons are drawn. As they approach, Fives suddenly turns with his blaster ready, but Deadpool appears from behind and taps his shoulder.
Boo.
Fives shoots a shot out of instinct, but Deadpool is already moving, dodging the bolt, and lifts his arm up. Slick emerges from the opposite direction, his blaster aimed squarely at Fives.
Fives, don't make this harder than it has to be. Just surrender. I can't let you take me in. You don't understand. They're controlling us.
Yeah, mind control. Big conspiracy. Get a load of this guy.
Fives makes a desperate move and lunges forward, trying to wrestle his blaster from Deadpool's grip and shoot Slick. But the clone is ready and sidesteps the shot and swings his blaster down, striking Fives' wrist and forcing him to drop the weapon. Before Fives can recover, Deadpool is on him. With a swift motion, he kicks Fives' blaster away and delivers a quick punch to the side, knocking the wind out of him. Fives stumbles back, but he's not ready to give up just yet. He draws a vibroblade from Deadpool's side and slashes him across the chest. Although it punctures deep, the bounty hunter seems more annoyed than anything.
Are you done?
Slick moves in from behind and drops him to the ground. Deadpool stands over him with his blaster pointed at his head.
It's nothing personal.
Breathing heavily, Fives looks up at Slick, desperation in his eyes.
You don't understand. They're controlling us. There are chips inside our heads to make us obey orders. We're just tools to them, Slick.
Slick hesitates, his blaster lowering.
The Jedi. I know that, Fives. They're controlling us. We're their slaves, but you still broke the law, so you need to stand trial.
Trial? No, our job is to stop him from killing the Chancellor.
Which we will when he's in prison.
Huh. Interesting. But those weren't our orders, and I'd rather not spend the next few weeks stuck in base.
Wait, Deadpool. I was given a fair trial and did my time. Why can't he be given the same?
Interesting. I never took you for a racist, Slick.
Excuse me?
Oh, please. If this was a Jedi, you'd have no problem putting a blaster bolt between their eyes. But now that it's a clone, you suddenly go all noble.
Because us clones don't have anyone but ourselves. The Chancellor is watching out for us, but we need to watch out for ourselves. No, you're wrong. The Chancellor is behind all of it. He's using us, Slick. We were nothing but pawns in his game. He's been putting chips in our heads. Please listen to me. If we don't stop this, they'll turn on all of us. The Jedi, the clones, it doesn't matter. We're all expendable to them. Wait, what chips?
Fives tilts his head so the scar on his head is visible.
The chips in all of us make us obey whatever the Chancellor wants.
Slick's eyes widen as he stares at the scar, the reality of Five's words starting to sink in. Deadpool remains silent, but a flicker of doubt crosses his expression as he watches the exchange.
We need to go.
As they leave the warehouse, Slick is lost in thought, the weight of Five's words pressing heavily on him. Deadpool walks beside him, uncharacteristically quiet.
As much as I hate to admit it, maybe there's something to what Fives was saying. We have to find out. If Fives is right, then we've been nothing but tools, doing whatever the Chancellor wanted. And what if we don't like what we find, Slick? What if we're pawns, like Fives said? Then we deal with it. We're clones. Brothers. We can't just ignore this. If Fives had a chip, then I probably have one too. And so do you.
Deadpool's eyes narrow slightly. He tries to shrug it off, but feels a shiver run down his spine.
You know, Slick, I've always been more of a shoot first, ask questions never kind of guy. But you're talking about cracking our heads open to find out we've been puppets all along. That's a whole new level of messed up.
I get it. Believe me, I do. The last thing I want is my freedom to have been a lie. If there's even a chance Fives was right, we have to find out.
The three of them decide to infiltrate a hospital to remove the chips themselves. They infiltrate at night, moving through the dimly lit corridors as they find a surgical suite. Slick sits on the examination table, trying to steady his nerves as the droid prepares to scan his head for the chip. Deadpool leans against the wall, arms crossed, doing his best to look unconcerned while Five stands guard outside.
Here goes nothing.
The droid activates the scanner, and a holographic image of Slick's head appears, slowly rotating. There, embedded deep within his brain, is a small, dark object, the inhibitor chip. Slick's stomach churns at the sight.
Well, would you look at that? Fives wasn't full of bantha dung after all.
The droid begins the procedure to remove the chip. Its precise movements take several hours, but when Slick wakes up, he sees the inhibitor chip in the droid's hands.
Your turn, partner.
You sure about this? What if it changes everything?
That's the point. We need to know, Deadpool. We need to be sure.
Sometimes I hate being a clone.
He moves over to the table and removes his helmet.
You're lucky I'm not one of those crazy mandos who doesn't remove their helmet.
As the droids begin the procedure, Slick closes his eyes.
Hang in there, buddy.
Although the droid works in silence, Five hears a faint sound in the distance, the sound of glass shattering. He gestures for Slick to follow as they ready their blasters and advance down the hallway. They open the door and look into the dimly lit corridor. They find the shattered window with shards everywhere, but Slick spots the slight movement in the shadows and aims just as a pair of red lightsabers are ignited. Ventress steps out from the dark and smirks. Slick and Fives open fire, blaster bolts lighting up the hallway as they advance. The bounty hunter sweeps her lightsabers and bats them aside. She advances towards them, and they pour fire on her. As she closes the distance, the pair backpedal to get some distance between them and her lightsaber. Desperately, she flicks his blaster and smashes it like a club. Ventress responds by slashing it apart. Fives, meanwhile, fires a grappling hook into the ceiling and zips up above Ventress's attack and manages to land a kick. He lands on top of her and pushes her lightsabers aside as he smashes his helmet against her face. This dazes the bounty hunter long enough for Slick to draw his pistol. He prepares to fire, but Ventress tucks her legs and kicks Fives, sending both clones back as she leaps to her feet, her lightsabers ready. Fives rolls to the side and aims again, but Ventress uses the Force to yank the blasters from his hands, sending it clattering down the hallway. With a swift kick, Ventress sends Slick crashing into the wall. As she moves for the kill, a sudden blue blur flashes through the hallway, and Ventress is forced to leap back, narrowly avoiding a strike from a pair of green lightsabers. Ahsoka stands between Ventress and the clones, her lightsabers at the ready.
What are you doing here, Jedi?
Fives called me. He knew you were in trouble.
You called a Jedi? Former Jedi. She's not with the Chancellor or the Jedi anymore. She's one of the few people we can trust.
How nice. But you're not going anywhere.
Ventress lunges at Ahsoka with her lightsabers flashing. This sends the three of them rolling out of the way as she spins and deflects whatever blaster fire they throw before blocking Ahsoka's counterstrike. The two of them advance on each other, slashing and hacking with their twin lightsabers in a mad dance. Neither clone can keep up with the attack or get a clear shot. However, Ventress moves faster and faster, slowly breaking through Ahsoka's defenses. But suddenly, a blaster shot rings out and everyone turns. Ventress barely has time to react before Deadpool, now fully conscious and armed with a blaster in one hand and a vibroblade in the other, leaps into the fray. He attacks with a wild, unpredictable style, throwing Ventress off balance. His combination of blaster fire and blade strikes forces Ventress to shift her focus entirely onto him. The others quickly surround Ventress, blocking her escape while Deadpool keeps her pressed. He has little concern for his injuries until he manages to disarm her.
Looks like the little dance is over, Ventress. Now you're gonna tell us why you're here.
I was hired.
By who? We're not going to ask again.
The Chancellor. He wanted you all dead. Said you'd gone AWOL and needed to be dealt with.
So we're the loose ends now, huh? And here I thought the Chancellor liked us.
We need to regroup. Figure out our next move.
But first, what do we do with Miss Sith here?
You can't kill me. If you do, you'll lose the only bargaining chip you have.
Oh, we're not going to kill you. You're going to do us a favor.
I don't do favors. Not for free.
Oh, don't worry. I'll make it worth your while. But you'll need to do exactly as we say.
Days later, Ventress returns to Palpatine with the three heads of the traitors and collects her bounty. Just in time, too, as the Battle of Coruscant happens, allowing Palpatine a chance to focus his attention on corrupting Anakin Skywalker. The city planet of Coruscant is quieter, though the scars of the recent battle are still visible. But things have gone back to normal for most people. Unfortunately, Anakin Skywalker is not one of them. For weeks, he's been protecting the Chancellor, but he's now revealed himself to be the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, and gave him an offer he can't refuse. Join him in exchange for saving his wife. As the two leave the Senate building, they begin discussing their next move.
The galaxy is ours, Lord Vader. Once we deal with the Jedi, nothing can stop us.
I wouldn't say nothing, Palpy.
From a speeder, Ahsoka, Ventress, Fives, Slick, and Deadpool all step out with blasters and lightsabers. Anakin moves protectively in front of his new master as the group advances on them.
This is impossible. How could you have survived?
You know, for a guy who can supposedly see the future, you really missed a few details. Like how your army is physically and genetically identical.
Kinda racist, isn't it, partner?
Tell me about it. And as for me, well, not the first time I've lost my head.
Palpatine's face twists in anger, but he quickly regains his composure, turning to Vader with a sneer.
It seems we have some unfinished business, Lord Vader. Dispose of them.
You four take him. The Chancellor is mine.
Anakin ignites his crimson lightsaber as a flurry of blaster fire comes pouring on him. Fives and Slick both open fire, but none of their weapons hit as Vader approaches to dive out of the way as Ahsoka blocks his attacks.
Anakin, please, don't do this. It's not too late.
I have to do this, Ahsoka. But you don't have to get in my way.
There's always a choice.
She spins around to whirl her lightsabers at Anakin, but the Dark Lord times his attack perfectly and parries the blow to send Ahsoka stumbling back. Ventress tries to cover her by stepping in front with her lightsabers slashing at Anakin. The two meet in a blur of sparks that light up the night. Their eyes lock and Ventress stares into those yellow eyes.
She might not want to do this, but I do.
Deadpool lands on his feet and spins his blade, dancing in a deadly display that leaves Palpatine trying to meet his speed. He whirls low and slashes against Deadpool's legs, dropping him to the ground. The Emperor takes advantage of this by kicking him aside. Though Deadpool falls to the ground, he swings his sword up and slashes against the Chancellor's robes.
You cannot defeat me. I am the Senate.
Yeah, and I'm the merc with the mouth.
Palpatine places a foot on Deadpool's chest and unleashes a flurry of slashes against his chest, but these only make the mercenary laugh as he knocks Palpatine off balance. Ventress and Anakin both rush at each other, their lightsabers crackling in a deadly dance. Ahsoka joins in, coming in from the side and thrusting at his stomach, forcing Anakin to twist away, but leaving him vulnerable to Ventress, who kicks him across the face. While he stumbles back, Ventress feints left, then twists her wrist and lands a strike on Anakin's side. Ahsoka tries to slash at his other side, but Anakin catches her and headbutts her. Meanwhile, Fives and Slick stay back, recognizing they can't match Anakin in close combat. Instead, Fives rolls a droid popper that sends a burst of ion energy, causing his grip to falter. This frees up Ahsoka's hand as she slams the hilt of her lightsaber against him. Ventress follows by slashing at his legs, and Slick hurls his backpack at Anakin while he tries to leap up. The Dark Apprentice drops to the ground as the Force around him. Furious, he unleashes a powerful Force shockwave that sends all three attackers, Ahsoka, Ventress, and the clones, flying backward. They crash into the walls and the ground, momentarily dazed. Anakin, seething with anger, strides towards Ventress and Slick, his hand outstretched. He tightens his grip in the air, using the Force to choke Ventress and Slick. They gasp for breath.
You are both nothing to me.
Ahsoka struggles to her feet, the desperation clear in her eyes. She sees her friends being choked to death and knows she has to act quickly.
Is that really true, Anakin? Are we all nothing to you?
She steps in front of him and lowers her lightsabers, letting them fall. Anakin hesitates, his grip on Ventress and Slick faltering for just a moment.
Ahsoka.
You were my mentor, my friend. Don't let the darkness take you completely.
Slowly, he releases his grip on the pair, who drop to the ground. But before he can do anything else, Fives fires a stun round at Anakin.
Sorry, General, but we can't take any chances.
Seeing that his attacks aren't doing anything to stop Deadpool, Palpatine decides to slow him down instead by slicing the mercenary across the legs and severing them. This leaves Deadpool hopping around desperately while Palpatine tries to escape.
You know you have proven yourself to be an excellent fighter. Perhaps with my training, you could become even better.
Yeah, I watched the prequels. I know what you do to your apprentices.
He unleashes a powerful jump and aims a kick at Palpatine's head, but the Chancellor leans back and brings his lightsaber up to slash off his other leg. Deadpool falls on the ground and crawls after him.
Ahsoka! Ventress! Throw me!
The pair nod, lift the bounty hunter with the Force, and hurl him into Palpatine. Deadpool grins and slams against Palpatine, knocking him to the ground as he picks up a knife and begins to stab him in the chest. Palpatine stumbles, gasping, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief.
This cannot be.
Believe it, motherfucker.
He pulls out a blaster and aims it at his forehead.
4 or 5 moments. Over a lifetime, there are only 4 or 5 moments that really matter. Moments where you're offered a choice, to make a sacrifice, conquer a flaw, save a friend, spare an enemy. In these moments,
Deadpool pulls the trigger, prompting Ahsoka to double over and gag.
Why?
Oh, come on! He was gonna take over the galaxy and commit genocide. Do any of you seriously not have a problem with that?
Ventress, Fives, and Slick all shake their heads, leaving Ahsoka to sigh and pick up the unconscious Anakin. Slick picks up Deadpool, and the group begins to walk off as the sun rises.
All right. Let's go X-Force.
We are not calling ourselves that.
That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.